I want to welcome you all. I thank you for showing up. Um, uh, we are, the reason we're going through this book is that this Florence Scoval Shinn has written The Game of Life and How to Play it, and she wrote some other books, but she really deals with the laws that govern our lives. And we think about the laws and only we think about gravity, we think about the physical laws all the time, the laws of heat and thermodynamics, and we don't think that about spiritual laws. And it didn't really come to our attention that there were spiritual laws, even though we know they exist, but we don't really think about them as we go through our days, or as we live and move and have our being, as you might say,
Hmm.
until they put out The Secret back in the
Yeah.
early 2000s. That's when we started looking at the law of attraction. We started recognizing, hey, that's an actual law. But even then, most of
Mhm.
us didn't stop and think, oh, maybe there are more. So um, that's why it's this is a good place to start when we start looking at spiritual laws. When you come here and go through the book study with us, I'm asking that you do not check your religion at the door. I know normally you would think you would say check your religion at the door, but I want you to bring it with you. I want you to, depending on how you were, however you were raised, whether you were raised Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, bring that with you and come open-minded, because all of us can learn from one another. So if she mentions scripture, Christian scripture a lot. I'm a
Hmm.
Christian metaphysical minister. Well, I was ordained Christian. The metaphysical came later. But I bring that perspective with me because I've studied Christianity so much. I use Yeshua as my example all the time. So I'm not
Hmm.
going to pretend I didn't study that. I'm not going to pretend that's not a part of me. I'm bringing that with me. And I want everybody else to bring your perspectives with you, share from your perspective, learn from other people's perspectives. And that's how we grow, by learning from one another and hearing that there's more to it than just that little box we were we were raised in. We're not here to
Hmm.
hurt anybody. We're not here to push our view. I'd like for us to express our views, but not argue about them. Um, Let me see. I also I just have to say that if people come and they are determined to try to proselytize or convert other people, I will have to mute you, and if it gets too far, I'll have to ask you not to come back, because we want everyone to feel comfortable while they're here. Let me see. I expressed that we're recording this. The subsequent this one will be uploaded, but um, the subsequent recordings will not be uploaded. They'll only be available to the people who register for the forum. And just like it was last time, it'll be $36 per month. And we'll talk more about that before we close tonight, because I really want to go ahead and get into the chapter. So I'm going to put it up on the screen in case you don't have the book. Do you have the book, Mary?
I do.
Oh, well, shoot. Okay, well, I really don't have to put it on the screen because only the audio is going to be online anyway. So y'all got your book.
Hmm.
We can just go
You're
ahead.
ready.
Yeah. Okay. So we're looking at chapter 1, the game. That's the introductory chapter. And because this is the first chapter, and we'll go ahead and read pretty much the whole thing is really very, very short. Um, she immediately gets into my stuff, the stuff that I've been talking about so much for years, the power of our thoughts. So she says, most people consider life a battle, but it's not a battle, it's a game. It's a game, however, which cannot be played successfully without the knowledge of spiritual law. And the Old and New Testaments give the rules of the game with wonderful clearness. Jesus Christ taught that it was a great game of giving and receiving. And when we stop and think about the cycle of life and how you have to give something in order to receive something, you can't receive something in a closed fist, you have to open your hand. And I think of Tai Chi whenever I think of giving and receiving, because when energy comes at you, instead of trying to resist it, you just let it flow back to where it came from. Whatsoever a man, now you all know the rules. I won't. I will say this so everybody else knows the rules, and I'll reiterate next week. But you all know if there's something you want to say, if you want to interject something, if it reminds you of something, if you have a story you want to tell, you know to speak up, say something. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So whatsoever a man sows, that shall he also reap. This means that whatever a man sends out in word or deed, and I'll add thought, will return to him. What he gives, he will receive. If he gives hate, he will receive hate. If he gives love, he will receive love. If he gives criticism, he'll receive criticism. If he lies, he'll be lied to. Oh my goodness. And she tells a story later on about that. Okay. We'll get to that. If he cheats, he'll be cheated. We are taught also that the imaging faculty plays a leading part in the game of life. Would somebody else read?
Keep thy heart or imagination with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life.
Mm-hmm.
Proverbs 4:23. This means that what man images sooner or later externalizes in his affairs. I know of a man who feared a certain disease. It was a very rare disease and difficult to get, but he pictured it continually and read about it until it manifested in his body and he died, the victim of distorted imagination. Let me ask you a question right there.
Ask.
When imaging, what about if you have the difference in if you have short flashes of negative images, nothing that you you repeat or nothing you hold on to, but maybe a negative something that comes up in your thought and you get rid of it and you go on to something else. Will something like that manifest itself somewhere down the line?
Sometimes it depends on how much emotion is behind it sometimes.
Okay.
Because sometimes
Yeah.
stuff just flashes in your head and it's just what the circumstance brought about. It just, something might remind you of something and it just flashes in your head. But sometimes out of anger, you might think something, you're allowing it in, or out of fear, and it just kind of flashes, but the emotion behind it is so strong that sometimes we do draw it into our lives.
Okay.
So I would say the best thing to do when something like that happens is to follow it up with something positive, follow it up with something loving. If it's a fearful thought,
Yes.
something loving for yourself, something that counters the image you just saw.
Yeah. I think somewhere in the Bible it maybe say something like cast down that imagination.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Don't dwell on it. Don't give it energy. Don't feed it energy. If it comes across, you cast it down, put it out of your mind and replace it with something that's going to be more loving and more positive and
Right.
dwell on that. Don't dwell on those negative thoughts, because I'm speaking for me, and you use the word fear, because what I thought about, I don't like for my daughter to be out at night by herself.
Mm-hmm.
And if she calls me, and like now, since it's dark at 5 o'clock, she'll call me and say, "Okay, I'm getting ready to stop by the store," and
Mm.
I automatically go, What are you going in this store for? You might get. You just got to be careful. Watch everywhere you're going and whatnot, and all of this, because with all the crime and everything that's going on nowadays, I want
Right.
her to be in a safe spot.
Right.
So those thoughts that something might happen to her out there, not that I'm manifesting it, but I want you to be careful. Be careful. Do you have your little buzzer with you? You got your mace with you or something? I just want her to be careful.
I so feel you on that, Mary. I feel you on that because my three of my granddaughters are in college and they are out and about, and so I'm always, reminding them to be mindful of your surroundings, choose
Mm-hmm.
carefully the people that you're associating with, because there are a lot of possibilities out there. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think there's a difference between being fearful and being cautious.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
For
Yeah.
me, yeah, I just want to impart to them the need to be cautious.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, always pay attention to where you're parking, and
Mm-hmm.
is there adequate light, or do
Right.
you see people just standing around not doing anything? Be cautious of your surroundings. Yeah.
Correct.
Well,
Okay.
I have to address this from the perspective of the daughter. And that's why I started laughing. I wasn't laughing at you for your concern. I hear your concern. And even now, as I'm with my mother, and I'm about as grown as you all are. But my mother still does the same thing with me.
You're a baby.
You are still her. That's it. You're still her baby.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when I leave the house, she's, and don't let somebody be loosed on the news that somebody just shot somebody just ran over some people, somebody's just bombed something, somebody, that's the concern that's in her mind. And I get it. I really, really do. However, as we're learning more and more about how the laws work, we have to replace that with a different thought about our children. We have to encase them in a bubble of light, encase them in a bubble of protection. We know the dangers are still out there, but and another reason I was laughing is because one time I was out, I guess I was in my late 30s, early 40s, and I had left my parents' house and I went home, and my father said, "Okay, call when you get home." And I got home and I didn't call immediately. I probably called like 30 minutes later. I only lived about 15 minutes from him. So, when I called my father, why you take so long to call? I said, well, I forgot. He said, well, I was sitting up here worrying about you. Somebody could have cut your head off. I said, Daddy, why do we have to go all there? But it doesn't have to be
Okay.
So that's part of the reason I started laughing, because we can take it to the extreme, but that's why we're studying how not to. Just we have to stay
Okay.
focused on the positive. We have to stay focused, because they might miss something. They might park in the wrong place, where they might park under a light that goes out while they're in the store. We just have to keep them covered.
And
And
that's why, my daily prayer is that that they are divinely guided and divinely protected as they move through the day. That's my prayer for them
yes,
each and every day.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. That is exactly right. Okay. And this exemplifies the power of our thoughts. I have a girlfriend who she always gets the odd diseases. She doesn't get normal stuff. She got diverticulitis. And I was like,
Mhm.
who gets that?
Yeah,
You
but I
know,
just had a friend's son just died of that.
oh my goodness.
Oh,
Just this past week. Mhm.
And
whoa.
so she gets concerned when she gets diagnosed with these odd things. But the interesting thing is they're usually checking on something else. Like she had something going on with her, and they checked and found out she had a blood vessel that was leading toward a stroke. She finally did have
Wow.
the stroke, but it wasn't as bad as it would have been if they hadn't been anticipating it. So, she gets the stuff that leads to something else. So I told her, part of it is that you expect that you're going to get the odd diseases. Stop it, I say. Stop, I say. So she has started changing the way she thinks. And it's a hard thing to do because she's had so many already. But it's a process and it's training. So we'll get into that as Florence talks some more. Okay,
Okay.
so continue, Sister Yabode. So we see.
So we see to play successfully the game of life, we must train the imaging faculty. A
Mhm.
person with an imaging faculty trained to imagine only good brings into his life every righteous desire of his heart, health, wealth, love, friends, perfect self expression, his highest ideals. The
Mhm.
imagination has been called the scissors of the mind, and it is ever cutting day by day the pictures man sees there, and sooner or later he meets his own creations in his outer world. To train the imagination successfully, man must understand the workings of his mind. Well, the Greek said, "Know thyself," and I put in my notes that was from Kemet, but it's
I know you
okay.
did. I know you did because I was just about to say out loud. And of course, before they said it,
Right.
yes, they said it in Africa. All right. So there are three departments of the mind: the subconscious, conscious, and superconscious. The subconscious is simply power without direction. It is like steam or electricity, and it does what it is directed to do. It has no power of induction. Whatever man feels deeply or images clearly is impressed upon the subconscious mind and carried out in manifest detail. For example, a woman I know, when a child, always made believe she was a widow. She dressed up in black clothes and wore a long black veil, and people thought she was very clever and amusing. She grew up and married a man with whom she was deeply in love. In a short time, he died, and she wore black and a sweeping veil for many years. The picture of herself as a widow was impressed upon her subconscious mind, and in due time worked itself out regardless of the havoc created.
Hmm.
Any comments?
I think out of everything that I read in this book, that's the image that has stuck with me the most over the years. Um, and it makes you wonder, like how how much easier it would be if, as children, we were taught to train our imaginations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just, that image was so profound for me. This little girl, playing this role all
Right,
this time until she actually manifested it. Just very
right.
profound.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I read a story in the Reader's Digest when I was younger, and all of this kind of reading these kind of stories helped shape how I started thinking. at an early age. Not to say I didn't think these kind of thoughts, but just reading this story about a little boy who his imagination was so vivid. He was playing on a rug, and he imagined that the lines in the rug were snakes, and he had to step across and step over, and if he touched a snake it might bite him. And his imagination was so strong that after he played this game for a while, eventually he stepped on one of the lines and fell over dead because he imagined a snake had bitten
It
him.
was a snake.
Exactly.
Mm.
So that's how strong our
Wow.
minds are. And this is in the subconscious that she's talking about, that we plant these images and we aren't even aware of how powerful they are.
Right.
Okay. So
Mm.
next is the conscious mind. Would somebody read that?
The conscious mind has been called mortal or carnal mind. It is the human mind and sees life as it appears to be. It sees death, disaster, sickness, poverty, and limitation of every kind, and it impresses the subconscious.
Okay. So these are the images that we see all the time that make the subconscious respond. So like I was talking about with the guy, with the young boy with the snakes, what he saw were the lines, and he's thinking death, he's thinking that it could get him, and that was impressed upon his subconscious mind. So now
Mm-hmm.
let's look at the superconscious mind. Somebody read that one.
I'll read it. The superconscious mind is the God mind within each man and is the realm of perfect ideas. In it is the perfect pattern spoken of by Plato, the divine design, or there is a divine design for each person.
Mm-hmm.
There's a place that you are to feel and no one else can feel, something you are to do which no one else can do. This is a perfect picture of this in the superconscious mind. It usually flashes across the conscious as an unattainable ideal, something too good to be true. And how many times have we fallen prey to that?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Because I'm gonna tell you,
Yep.
that's what Healing House was. I was like, there's no way. There is no way. When that first occurred to me in late 89, I thought, a holistic health hospital, a holistic hospital for Black people. That was what occurred. I said, there's no way in the world. That's an impossibility. That is something that's too good to be true. But in the mind of God, there's no such,
Yeah.
That's part of the divine design for my person. And,
Mm-hmm.
each one of us may have that dream, that the dream deferred.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you're at the chamber, this new initiative called the Operation Renaissance. I was telling somebody the other day, this is divine timing is everything.
Yeah.
The first iteration of that I am aware of was back in the early 2000s when Muja and Carl Jung started a political pact called the Tuskegee Renaissance Pact. And its job was to elect progressive leadership to office. That was the first iteration. Then in 2012, I'm sitting at my altar, I'm thinking about it. I already had in my head this idea of the Tuskegee diaspora, all of these people who are a part of us, who have left or who are, no longer physically here, but have a role to play in rebuilding Tuskegee, right? And I called it, and Guy Crammell helped me put the little PowerPoint together. It was called the Tuskegee Diaspora Renaissance Pact. Renaissance foundation. And so that energy of Renaissance has been percolating, germinating for a while in this community. And now it seems that it is finally divinely appointed for it to take root and blossom. So, yes, you know, plant the seed, you don't have control over when it sprouts. You know, you don't have
Right.
control over, you know. So I think scripture says one man planteth, another watereth, and you know, it's
God giveth the
gives the
increase.
increase. There you go. Yep.
Yeah. Wow. So it is, I'm sure it's astounding to watch some of that unfold, because when we create the image, and that's what she's talking about, imaging something, we create this image in our heads. To watch it unfold and to to think of the unlikely ways that it starts to unfold, you know. And you know, I'm sure you're watching it, Iyabode, with Tuskegee, and I'm thinking, when I came back here to help take care of my parents, I'm just thinking, I'm just taking care of my parents. There was nothing else attached to it
Right.
except that. And then all of a sudden this other starts to unfold.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when people start coming back to Tuskegee, you actually start to see, oh my goodness.
Absolutely. 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 And people who have no idea why they're even being called to
Exactly.
Tuskegee.
Exactly.
You know,
Yes.
the
Yes.
part of a divine plan.
Exactamundo. Okay, and it says in here, there's a perfect picture of this in the superconscious mind. It just it unfolds in ways we can't possibly even imagine, ask, or think. Okay.
Yeah.
Next paragraph.
According to the power that worketh within us.
There you go. And we don't even realize the power. We don't realize how powerful we are. That's the whole point of going through this, because we are so powerful, and we just let ourselves get tossed to and fro, and we just don't recognize how powerful we really are. It takes discipline, it takes practice, but the power is in us. Okay, so she goes on to say, in reality, it is man's true destiny or destination flashed to him from the infinite intelligence which is within him. That reminds me of this convoluted thing Denzel Washington said, and every time I was trying to memorize it, but it's so convoluted. It's something he says like, the will of God is, you know when what you want is the will of God because God took the time to put it in your spirit, or something he says, and I was like, because it comes up as something you want, that's how you know it's the will of God, because God put it in your heart. I said, okay. And that's similar to what she's saying right here. Many people, however, are in ignorance of their destinies and are striving for things and situations which do not belong to them, and would only bring failure and dissatisfaction if attained. For example, a woman came to me and asked me to speak the word that she would marry a certain man with whom she was very much in love. She called him AB. I replied that this would be a violation of spiritual law, but that I would speak the word for the right man, the divine selection, the man who belonged to her by divine right. I added, if AB is the right man, you can't lose him. And if he isn't, you will receive his equivalent. She saw AB frequently, but no headway was made in their relationship. One evening, she called me and said, do you know, for the last week, AB hasn't seemed so wonderful to me. I replied, maybe he's not the divine selection. Another man might be the right one. Soon after that, she met another man who fell in love with her at once. and who said she was his ideal. In fact, he said all the things to her she always wanted AB. She always wished AB would say to her. She remarked, "It is quite uncanny." She soon returned his love and lost all interest in AB. This shows the law of substitution. A right idea was substituted for a wrong one. Therefore, there was no loss or sacrifice involved. When she keeps talking about these laws, and that made me go buy another book that has a bunch of different spiritual laws in it, but the law of substitution. And that's another one that where we think, I've heard so many people say that God hasn't answered my prayer. God hasn't answered my prayers. Well, there are certain laws. First of all, she talks about how it's a violation of spiritual law to pray that somebody loses their free will. And that's basically what she was doing. Yeah, she's praying that this man will love her, and that might not be his will, the guy's will. That's not what he wants to do. So when you start speaking the word to try to convert somebody or make somebody change who they are and what they are doing, that's in violation. So that's point number one. But then the law of substitution brought her what she wanted in the form of a totally different guy. Baby wasn't him. I've experienced that.
Okay.
Any comments about the substitution or spiritual law involved in that story?
I think you said it quite well when you talk about violating someone else's free will or someone else. That part I think is key. Because it speaks to a certain level of self-absorption that negates another person's humanity at that point.
Right.
And that is a violation of spiritual law.
Right.
Yeah, that's quite selfish.
And we don't even realize we're being selfish. I remember when I was going to this church in LA, and it was, I don't know if it was nationwide, but it seemed to be LA wide. The women were claiming that man's my husband. That's my husband. I claim him in the name of Jesus. I'm like, girl, if you don't stop, you don't know what the man is like. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it right now. Yeah, and there were a couple of them.
I think that was a whole era of time, and I think it might have been in the late 90s. Was it during the late 90s when? Yeah, that was, I think, pretty much
Yeah.
The naming and claiming era.
Yeah, there you go.
That one. And the Clark sisters, I blame them. They started that with their song "Name It, Claim It," but they didn't mean I don't think they meant to violate people's people's personal will, and there is some truth to the name it and claim it, that premise, but you have to respect
within certain it has there's some boundaries there, as long as it does not violate another person's will.
Exactly.
And then sometimes in some of the churches that I've been involved with, you get on, and I'll use the phrase, you get on a kick, like the name it and claim it. And that's all you're focused on. You lose focus on just what you all were saying about what about the other person's choice? What about their power or desire to choose what's right for them? And you're basically, in some instances, taught that if you name it and claim it, that shows your spirituality. The more focused you are, the more you don't back down, the more you do it, the more spiritual you are. It's just, some bad teachings.
Yeah.
Instead
Right.
of you can't look at it as if you are the only person involved. And
Right.
again, some of these teachings without guidelines have done more harm than they've done good for individuals.
Right.
I agree.
Exactly. Exactly. So
And
true.
ask me how I know, because I've been one of them.
Yeah. That's a true.
I
We know
think
a
we've
lot
all
of
got
stuff
some
from
church wounds.
experience. Yeah.
I think we
Man,
all have some church wounds. Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Inclined to agree with you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to the next paragraph. So Jesus Christ said,
Okay.
somebody read that?
Jesus Christ said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." And he said, the kingdom was within man. The
Mhm.
kingdom is the realm of right ideas or the divine pattern. Jesus Christ taught that man's words played a leading part in the game of life. By your words ye are justified, and by your words ye are condemned.
Yeah. Yeah.
Many people have brought disaster into their lives through idle words.
Lord have mercy.
That part right there. Okay, she's about to go into an example, and I'll let you go ahead and read the example. But this part right here, we all need to pay attention, and there are times when we just need to hush. We just need to stop talking, because we talk ourselves into a situation that, if the thought is there, but once you say it out loud, it goes not only into your own space, but it goes into other people's ears and consciousnesses. That's when it starts to do a heap of damage. But okay, go ahead and read the example.
For example, a woman once asked me why her life was now one of poverty, of limitation. Formerly, she had a home, was surrounded by beautiful things, and had plenty of money. We found she had often tired of the management of her home and had said repeatedly, "I am sick and tired of things. I wish I lived in a trunk." And she added, "Today I am living in that trunk." She had spoken herself into a trunk. The subconscious mind has no sense of humor, and people often joke themselves into unhappy experiences.
And I've stopped people sometimes, and they say, "Well, I was just joking," and I guess I'm the wet dish rag in the conversation, because I'm trying to stop people. Don't say that. I know you're joking, but as she just said, spirit has no sense of humor. Spirit ain't playing with you.
Yeah,
If you say the word, spirit says, "Oh, is that your prayer?" Okay.
yeah. And you used a good word there, prayer. A lot of people don't think about the spoken word. They think about
Absolutely.
prayer as just you down on your knees
Exactly.
and you crying out to God, and that's the only time you're praying. They never see their words being formed or causing things to form. Just yesterday, I took my brother to the doctor, and the first time he said it, I didn't say anything. But the second time he said it was, my doctor started me on some new medicine and it's killing me. And oh, no, don't you say
Right.
that again. No,
Right.
no, 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 no. Now you may be feeling sick, but don't say it's killing you, because
Right.
your words are very powerful and you're forming this. So don't say the medicine is killing you. So yeah, we just don't pay attention
Right.
to our words.
Yep. I think the
Right.
first time I became really consciously aware that it was something, I don't know which one of Diana's books that it was, way back in the 90s. But the words she said was that every thought is a prayer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every thought is a prayer,
Okay.
and so we really, really do have that. I know I'm so guilty of that, thinking things, and I know when I think, as soon as I think the thought, I know better, you know.
Right.
Sometimes
Mhm.
something will fly out of my mouth, and there was this thing, I don't know where that came from, when we used to say, okay, cancel, cancel. I don't know,
Right.
was that a Yana? We used to say cancel that. I don't remember, but I remember, being very conscious, and
Mm.
you have to keep practicing that
Yes.
consciousness around
Right.
that. It's
Yes.
so
Yes,
easy.
you do.
Like, I
Mhm.
find
Yeah.
myself slipping back into standing up in front of the TV and being very, very vocal about how much I dislike certain people and situations. And I just have to remind myself that's not healthy. It's not
Right.
healthy. I know I'm upset about what's happening in Gaza and other places, but what I'm doing is not healthy.
Right.
And
And
yeah,
even when dude was in office
yeah, yeah.
before
Oh my
Biden,
God.
I made it a practice to stop saying his name. I didn't want to
Yeah.
call his type of energy into my
Mhm.
space. I didn't want any. There's so much more attached to our
Mm.
words that we don't see. We just don't know about it. We don't get it. So I don't even say the name. I don't call
Yeah.
the name
Mhm.
people I don't like. If I don't like them, why? I take,
Mhm.
what's that they used to say? If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. I take it
Don't
to
say
the
anything at all.
extreme.
Yep.
Take it to the extreme. I try
Mhm.
not to even think about them. If something happens to be on the news and I pass in my mother's room, I might listen to see, because I got to know what's going on in the world, I guess. So I check it out to see. But beyond that, I'm not trying to hear all the conversation around it and who said it and all the talking head. I don't,
Mhm.
because it's filling my head with stuff I
Yeah.
don't
Yes.
fill my head with. Because I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I know. Because
Hmm.
you want to
Hmm.
say a few choice words after a
Oh,
while,
I have. Trust me, I have.
and I don't even
I
want to
have.
go there. So in order
Yep.
not to, I
There
just
you
turn
go.
away. I can't be.
And I probably should go back to. I was an HGTV fanatic at one point during the other administration, and so I probably should go back to a lot more of that, because I tell you, that news cycle is triggering in a lot of ways for me.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. For
You
most of
know
us.
that's true. It's a biblical scripture about guarding our gates, our gates, our ear gates. You have
Hmm.
to be
Hmm.
careful what you let into
Yep.
your mind and what you're going to
Right.
do with all of that. Why fill it up with all of this negative stuff that you got to try now to get rid of it?
Yep.
If you hadn't accepted it in, you wouldn't have had to. So
Right.
we
Right,
really have to guard all of
right.
our gates. What we hear, what we see, what we say.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So true. Okay, read the next
All right.
example, either one of you.
For example. For example, a woman who had a great deal of money joked continually about getting ready for the poorhouse. In a few years, she was almost destitute, having impressed the subconscious mind with a picture of lack and limitation. Fortunately, the law works both ways, and a situation of lack may be changed to one of plenty. For example, a woman came to see me one hot summer's day for a treatment for prosperity. She was worn out, dejected, and discouraged. She said she possessed just $8 in the world. I said, good. We'll bless the $8 and multiply them as Jesus multiplied the loaves and the fishes. For he taught that every man had the power to bless and to multiply, to heal and to prosper. She said, what shall I do next? I replied, follow intuition. Have a hunch to do anything or go anywhere. Intuition means intuition or to be taught from within. It is man's unerring guide, and I will
Mm.
deal more fully with its laws in a following chapter.
Okay.
The woman replied, I don't know. I seem to have a hunch to go home. I have just enough money for car fare. Her home was in a distant city and was one of lack and limitation. And the reasoning mind or intellect would have said, stay in New York and get work and make some money. I replied, then go home, never violate a hunch. I spoke the following words for her. Infinite Spirit, open the way for great abundance for, and blah, blah, blah. She is an irresistible magnet for all that belongs to her by divine right. I told her to repeat it continually also. She left for home immediately. In calling on the woman one day, she linked up with an old friend of her family. Through this friend, she received thousands of dollars in a most miraculous way. She has said to me often, tell people about the woman who came to you with $8 and a hunch. Wow.
Yep,
Wow.
I know. This
That
is
one right there.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying that right there. Because hunches, can sometimes seem very irrational.
They do.
Yep.
But
But
sometimes
haven't
just
our
gotta,
elders always said, listen to your first mind? That's what those hunches are.
absolutely listen to your gut. Yep.
And interestingly, though, as we're growing up, we might pay attention to those, and we're trained out of it. Like sometimes
Yes.
we do some of those irrational things, and our parents look at us like, "Have you lost your mind?"
Yep.
Sorry,
Yep.
Or they ask you, "Why'd you do that?" I don't know. We don't have a way. We don't have the vocabulary to explain that. As a young child, it was a hunch. I just had a feeling I needed to do it.
Right.
If it didn't make sense, why would you do it? So we're out of that.
Yes, we are.
And I want to make clear that when she talks about a treatment in that at the beginning of that example, she says a woman came to me one hot summer's day for a treatment. When she speaks about treatments throughout the book, she's basically giving prescriptions. She when they ask her for a treatment, she gives them affirmations or a form of prayer or something they need to do. That's their prescription for moving forward. That's the treatment they're talking about. So it was kind of confusing when I first started, I was like, what's she talking about? A treatment? She talks about her treatment and the treatment for that and the treatment. I'm like, what? What is she? So that's what they're referring to when she says they came to her for a treatment. And the treatment she gave is infinite spirit opened the way for great abundance for blah, blah, blah. She is an irresistible magnet for all that belongs to her by divine right. And of course, this is an affirmation that she's giving her, or a prayer, if you will. And just for our clarity, the woman would have said, infinite spirit open the way for great abundance for whatever she wants. I am an irresistible magnet for all that belongs to me by divine right. So it's always present tense. It's always about yourself. You're not talking about somebody else, because again, you go into violating their free will. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then she goes on from there. It says, there is always plenty on man's pathway, but it can only be brought into manifestation through desire, faith, or the spoken word. And notice she said, or.
Yes.
Desire, or faith, or the spoken word. So sometimes we speak it and we may not necessarily believe for it at the time we say it, but we keep saying it. We just keep on with this affirmation. Say, okay, well, God, you said you saved me. God, you said in your word that you do it. So we just keep saying it. We just keep saying it. We just keep saying it. And eventually those words come to fruition. I see you, Sister Yabode. And then Faith is a big one too. Belief, just knowing. You know that you know that you know. Even if you don't speak it, you may not tell it to anybody. You just know that you know that you know. That will bring it about. Strong desire will bring it about. Even if you don't really believe it, but you want it, you want it, you want it bad. Sometimes
Yes.
that will bring it about. And that takes us back to what we were saying about women. And so there were some men involved in that too, but claiming other people into their lives. I
Mhm.
actually knew a couple of them who claimed these men. They wound up getting married and they were wishing they had never met the brother. But they got what they got what they wanted. It was such a
Yes.
strong
What they
desire.
claim. Yeah.
Yep, they
Yeah.
claimed it, they
Yeah.
wanted it, and so they got it. So either one
Yeah.
of those works toward manifesting what we want. But if we have all three of those, can you
Wow.
reach it? Can
Wow. Boy, that's a knockout.
Yes.
You
Yes.
desire it, you believe it, you got this gut feeling about it, and you're speaking it. That's
Mhm.
coming at you from all directions.
Yeah.
That's a knockout. That's a winner.
Yeah. Because
Wow.
Jesus Christ brought out clearly that man must make the first move.
Mhm.
It's like, well, we got to make the
And you
first,
know,
but
that
this,
reminds me of something. I was thinking about on the health wise. I've been involved in a lot of health in people's health lately.
mhm,
And what I noticed, we'll go to the doctor, we'll get sick, we'll go to the doctor, and the doctor will give us a prescription, but he'll tell us, stop doing this, don't eat this, don't drink this, take this medicine, and you'll get better. We leave the doctor's office, we get the prescription filled, and then some of us as Christians, we will begin to pray, oh God, heal me. Oh Lord, heal me. You're taking the medicine, you're praying to God, but you are the one who has not stopped doing what you're supposed to stop doing, or you haven't started doing what you're
right,
supposed to start doing in order to help the situation. Everybody is busy, but the person who needs the help the most. And Jesus
mhm,
Christ said, man must make the first move. We have to do something
right,
in order
right.
to bring about something else. You keep
Mhm,
sitting doing nothing, you'll keep getting nothing. So you got to
right,
do something. But I've just noticed that recently because I've seen it several different ways when it comes to
mhm,
doctors and how we take control of our health.
right,
Now, Mary,
right.
I was supposed to be on mute for the rest of this session. I put that in the chat, but you done said a word today for me. So thank you. I'm going back on mute now, but you did preach a word
Okay.
to me right there. So thank you, Sister Mary.
Okay, you're welcome.
Loving it, loving it. Okay, would you continue reading that? I think we're at, I forgot.
Ask,
Mm-hmm.
ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and it shall be open unto you. Matthew 7:7. In the
Mm-hmm.
scripture we read, concerning the works of my hands, command ye me. Infinite intelligence, God is ever ready to carry out man's smallest or greatest demands. Every desire, uttered or unexpressed, is a demand. We are often startled by having a wish suddenly fulfilled. For example, one Easter, having seen many beautiful rose trees in the floor's window, I wished I would receive one, and for an instant saw it mentally being carried in the door. Easter came, and with it, a beautiful rose tree. I thanked my friend the following day and told her it was just what I wanted. She replied, I didn't send you a rose tree, I sent you lilies. The man had mixed the order. and sent me a rose tree simply because I had started the law in action and I had to have a rose tree.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. I did something
Wow.
similar when I was looking for an apartment one time. And I went into the apartment and there was one that had, okay, I'm aging myself right here. There was one that had gray shag carpet. There was one that had beige regular tile carpet. And I said, "Ooh, I want the one with the regular beige carpet because they have a um what's the thing? The hole in the roof. They have a uh what's the Lord have mercy, I can't think of the what's the hole, the sky where you can look up through the ceiling and see the
Skylight.
yeah, the skylight.
Skylight.
Skylight?
Thank you.
Skylight.
So it had a skylight, and I was like, "Oh, I want the skylight in the bathroom." So another couple came into one of the apartments. I don't know which one I was in because both of them, one had really big windows. The other one the windows were pretty big, but it had the skylight. So I ran down to the office and I had said I wanted the skylight, but I gave him the wrong apartment. I said skylight in my mind. I gave him the wrong apartment number when I got down there because I couldn't remember which apartment was what. So he said, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote it down. And when he sent me the information later, it was the one with the gray shag carpet. And I was like, oh, I gave him the wrong apartment number. Well, he called me back later and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. The other couple applied for that one first. So we're going to have to give you the one with the beige carpet and the skylight." I was thinking, "Okay, I thought that's what I was asking for." I said, "Okay, I'll take it." So sometimes those mistakes just happen to unfold into what you actually want because that's what you're asking for.
That's the desire.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, let me see. Okay, the next paragraph. Nothing stands between man and his highest ideals, and every desire of his heart, but doubt. Oh, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Nothing stands between a man and his ideals and every desire of his heart, but doubt and fear. When man can wish without worrying, every desire will be instantly fulfilled. And I've seen that happen so many times. I had a book I was writing prayer answers in. I got to bring that next time and share that with some of those prayers. She goes on to say, I will explain more fully in a following chapter the scientific reason for this and how fear must be erased from the consciousness. It is man's only enemy. Fear of lack, fear of failure, fear of sickness, fear of loss, and a feeling of insecurity on some plane. Jesus Christ said, "Why are you fearful, O you of little faith?" in Matthew 8:26. So you can see we must substitute faith for fear. For fear is only inverted faith. It is faith in evil instead of good. So that's something to keep in mind, that fear is still a form of faith, but it's faith in the worst things that can possibly happen.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of power in it. So we attract that very thing that we're afraid of. But again, she'll explain that in a later chapter. Somebody else read the next paragraph, please. The object of the game.
The object of the game of life is to see clearly one's good and to obliterate all mental pictures of evil. This must be done by impressing the subconscious mind with a realization of good. A very brilliant man who has attained great success told me he had suddenly erased all fear from his consciousness by reading a sign which hung in a room. He saw printed in large letters this statement: "Why worry? It will probably never happen." These words were stamped indelibly upon his subconscious mind, and he has now a firm conviction that only good can come into his life. Therefore, only good can manifest.
Shay. I have a girlfriend
Oh.
who said years ago, the only people she wants in her life are people who are, first of all, they're good people. They have a desire to grow spiritually, and they mean her well. She decided those are the only people she wants in her life, period. And so those are the people she attracts now. People who don't mean her well, they just steer clear of her. She attracts these people. I call them her collection of people, because she attracts people like that. She rode a cab from the airport to her house, and she lives in Altadena, so it's coming from the LA airport is probably about maybe an hour's drive, a little less than an hour with no traffic. So when there's traffic, you're sitting in, you can easily be there for 2 hours. So she's riding with this cab driver, and this cab driver starts this conversation, and it turns out to be this spiritual conversation. He's getting all deep, and he's talking about how the kind of stuff we're talking about here. He's getting into how we attract things into our lives, and she's looking at the back of him like, "Well, on." Even the cab driver. These are the people.
The cab driver.
Yeah, because this is what she decided she's going to attract to herself. She doesn't attract people who, if she has attracted people who rip her off. That's a whole other story. That would take a whole lesson. But even with the people who has ripped her off, she converts those relationships into relationships about spirituality. She winds up talking to them about spirituality, because that's what she has chosen to attract.
Okay.
When we release the fear, fear just gets in the way. It's like we've put up a big old barrier when we have fear. It stops whatever good things are trying to get to us.
Yeah. It stops the bad, but it also stops the good.
Yeah. Well,
and you're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're really stuck. Fear holds you hostage. Yeah.
Yes, it does. It does. It definitely does. Okay, where were we? Did we read The Object of the Game?
Yeah, we're on page 14, the first beginning of the first paragraph in the following chapter.
Okay. Okay, you're still unavailable, right, Iyabode? Okay. All right.
Yeah, she said she'd be going.
I can take a break. Hold on.
Okay.
In the following chapter, I will deal with the different methods of impressing the subconscious mind. It is man's faithful servant, but one must be careful to give it the right orders. Man has ever a silent listener at his side, his subconscious mind. Every thought, every word is impressed upon it and carried out in amazing detail. It is like a singer making a record on the sensitive disc of the phonographic plate. Every note and tone of the singer's voice is registered. If he coughs or hesitates, it is registered also. So let us break all the old bad records in the subconscious mind, the records of our lives which we do not wish to keep, and make new and beautiful ones.
Yes. So that's why oftentimes we have to repeat affirmations over and over and over, because we've got so much stuff in our head from back in the day, stuff our parents impressed upon us as children, stuff we learned on the playground. People might have teased us about something. Somebody might have said something about the way you walk, and so now you're subconscious of the way you walk. And it's been years, but we have these things in our heads from way back ago. So the affirmations, we have to be intentional. We have to repeat them sometimes to undo some of that stuff that's in our subconscious mind. Because as she said, it recorded everything. Everything is there. Stuff we don't remember. And sometimes we have dreams and we're thinking, that seemed mighty familiar. Yeah, it really did happen. But we've forgotten about some of that stuff. And sometimes those dreams are our way of shaking it loose and getting it out of there. But affirmations, we have to just keep repeating them. Okay. So speak these words aloud with power and conviction. I now smash and demolish by my spoken word every untrue record in my subconscious mind. They shall return to the dust heap of their negative nothingness, for they came from my own vain imaginings. I now make my perfect records through the Christ within, the records of health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression. This is the square of life, the game completed. So you could draw a square that has health at one corner, wealth at another corner, love at one corner, and perfect self-expression. She says that is the perfect square of life. So in the following chapters, I will show how man can change his conditions by changing his words. Any man who does not know the power of the word is behind the times. All right.
Okay.
So this is what we're about to embark on, remembering how these laws work. And she, in the next chapter, is called The Law of Prosperity. Then she goes into the power of the word. I can hardly wait to go over that again. The law of non-resistance, the law of karma, and the law of forgiveness, casting the burden, and pressing the subconscious. Love, she has a chapter on love, then intuition or guidance, then perfect self-expression and the divine design, then denials and affirmations. So this is going to be a fun journey, y'all. It's going to be fun, I tell you.
It is.
So I'm looking forward to it. If you know of anybody else who might be interested in going on the journey with us, let us know, let me know, and I'll send, if you can get their email address, and I'll send an invitation for them to join, so that they'll
remind me of how often we meet. How often are we meeting?
Every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday. Okay, so you know that every other Tuesday, the second and fourth, I will have council meetings, so I will miss the second and fourth Tuesdays of each month.
Okay. Well, and I'm working on being more diligent about getting these recordings together. So I will work on having the recordings up for you, especially since I know you won't be there the second and fourth Tuesdays. And for the sake of those who might be listening to this, we go from 7 to 9 p.m. and we're not required to stay for the whole 2 hours. It's just so that we have enough time if we choose to. It's $36 per month once you register. The first month is a registration that's required. And then after that, we ask $36 per month, but it is a donation. So nobody will be kicked out if you don't pay. I'm not going to be giving nobody the side eye and saying, I don't know why she's here. He ain't paying no $36. I'm not going to be doing all that. As a matter of fact, when the money comes in, I'm not even going to be looking to see who's paying and who's not. I'm just sending out the link, and if you contribute, you do.
You're gonna send that via email?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And if somebody prefers texting, they just let me know as we go, and I'll text it. But for now, it's email.
Okay.
And if you'd like the PDF of the book, I just email info@thewholeselfministries.com, and I will email the PDF of the book. There's actually I guess it's a public domain version that's online. And so it's free, and you can just keep up with us that way. Let me see, and I believe that's all we had to cover.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments?
I love
I'm
it.
grateful I was here.
Me too.
Me too.
Very grateful.
Yes, yes.
So come next
Enjoyed
time
it.
prepared with your stories, read the chapter in advance so that you'll be armed with your stories and your questions, your comments, your feedback, all of that.
Okay.
All right. I love
Will
y'all.
do. Thank you, ladies. Peace and blessings.
All right.
Peace to y'all. You
Peace
have
and
a good
blessings
week.
to you all.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.